welcome to the Coach Me podcast. My name is Nadine Stille, founder of Coach Me and your podcast host. It's wonderful to have you tune in today as I'll be talking about wellness in the workplace with leadership and organizational coach Kels Davidson. Kels is certified as an organizational coach from the University of British Columbia. Her approach to coaching is based on deep connection and exploration. She promises individualized coaching with a commitment of intention and clarity and an I see you approach to fostering growth within each person, encouraging them to step into their significance. Her coaching is real and relatable, with a deeper connection and understanding that each one of us is different, but that we are all entitled to feeling worthy and accomplished. Kels is energized by working with emerging and established leaders to grow their business and deepen their organizational cultures. Partnering with people to dig in and examine their talents, strengths, and gifts, she coaches them to build their career and advance the teams they work with. Kels believes that in order to adapt and evolve as our world changes, we need more authentic, imperfect, and wholehearted leaders. She's excited to help leaders or aspiring ones find their groove and develop their unique style that will make a big impact. She also believes that impactful leaders need a kick-ass team to be successful. As a leader in organizations for the last 20 years, she builds high-functioning and aligned teams who get big results, build relationships, and navigate workplace dynamics. With a values-based approach, Kels brings teams together to construct a workplace culture that will fulfill them and increase productivity. And well-being plays a big part in the workplace culture that Kels helps build. Which leads us nicely to today's episode details. We find out how wellness fits in the modern workplace and who is responsible for it. We learn what the risks are when we, or especially leaders, do not pay attention to well-being in the workplace. And Kels leads us through a coaching tool and insightful questions to identify our current individual wellness at work situation, to identify areas we each might want to work on. Please make sure you'll check out the show notes to download the coaching tool Kels refers to during our chat. This way you get to walk through the questions while you listen in. Hi, Kels. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Oh, same here, same here. Let's dive right in. We'll be talking about wellness in the workplace today, and you're a leadership and organizational coach. So, why this topic, and what makes you so passionate about it?
I think that when I have started kind of going down the path in leadership and then pursued leadership and organizational coaching, it really became clear to me how important that your foundation is really strong in order for you to have an effective team, an effective, transformational leadership style. Those pieces, you have to have a strong foundation, and wellness work is that foundational work. Especially in folks who are in a stressful or leadership role, wellness is so, so important to get that foundation strong so that you can actually focus on what's next and that leadership piece. When I work with a leader or enter an organization, one of the first things that I look for is what's going on beyond what's being said. So in our conversations, some of that feeling of how's this person doing? How's this person feeling? Is there a sense of calmness? Is there a sense of boundaries? Is there, when I talk to their team, is there an actual overall, I guess, sense of well-being among them? And if that is there, you can actually take that team to the next level. If those pieces are missing, it's really hard to get the best out of your organization and get the best work done as a leader. So it is, to me, a really, really important foundational piece, especially during this time where our well-being is actually being compromised a bit because of COVID.
Yeah, I know this actually just came up as well. It's like, what changes have you seen in, say, the last year, and maybe even the need for wellness?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the first thing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about like the different areas of wellness that you can kind of tap into to look at. But one of the first things is our workplaces have changed. So we've gone from seeing people in the coffee room, having those like small pieces of investment in your coworkers, where you're building relationships, you're having quick chats, quick check-ins, you're getting to know each other. A lot of people have actually moved out of the workplace and out of offices into their homes. Mm-hmm. And so now if you don't make an effort, you might not actually have an opportunity to connect with somebody that you would have otherwise ran into in the lunchroom. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of that social aspect at work that's being affected, and that can actually affect in work and outside of work, which then makes people feel a little bit lonely. It can make people feel a little bit down, depressed. We're seeing a real surgence of depression cases, burnout cases, people feeling a little bit lost. And a lot of that has to do with the isolation through COVID-19, as well as just not being in that office and not being around people on a regular basis. Mm. The other thing I've seen that's really good is there's been more acceptance that we have to focus on this. So I've seen, leaders who have been a little bit, mental health, we'll put it aside. Just put a ping pong table in the back room. That's fun. Give a pizza party. That's wellness. More people are seeing, no, we actually have to look into our paid time off policies. We need to make sure that people are taking breaks, that they're taking care of themselves, and that we're focusing on it. So it's actually reducing the stigma about needing to care for yourself, which is actually a positive.
That's a really good trend, yes. And I mean, there's plenty in the news as well, especially around mental health during COVID. So all the major news outlets have covered it, in the World Health Organization, sometimes in governments. We've seen it here in Canada as well, where there have been information about it. So it's great that it sinks through and you're actually observing that as well on a leadership level, but then it actually affects then everyone as well, because hopefully models by a leadership, it kind of sinks down to everyone as well. What
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Sometimes it's like when you first said about wellness in the workplace, I thought I kind of knew what you meant by it. But sometimes, maybe you can just explain exactly what the context is for wellness. I guess there's a bit more to it than the ping pong table that you just mentioned, and massages, yoga, depending on, probably also the workplace and the needs. But what exactly do you mean by wellness in the workplace?
I think that, there's different ways that you can approach wellness in the workplace. But the starting place has to be simple. You can, a simple act of showing that you care, making sure that you have some benefits available to staff so that they can actually see and access healthcare. Making sure that you are checking in and saying, how's your workload? So as a leader, there's lots of little things that it's just showing care so people can work on their wellness. There are things like bringing, mindfulness activities into the workplace, bringing in some yoga classes. Those are all great. But if the beginning, that basis isn't there, then that can be a real deterrent to people to actually benefit from the extra stuff. Mm-hmm. A good example that I have is setting up a lunchroom. So if people are going into the workplace, you can go into some places like retail shops, which I've done a lot of work with. Retail organizations, they quite often have this beautiful front end that's like gorgeous, that has all the frills. It's a beautiful shopping experience. We've done a lot of things to make sure that, they're COVID-19 safe. I've seen all sorts of cool things happening. But if you're not providing a fridge that actually allows people to put in their lunch and be able to not cross-contaminate, or making sure that they have somewhere to sit down in a time where they can't just go sit in a food court, or they might not feel safe to go do other things, then that basic level of wellness isn't being addressed. So you can look at like 4 different areas within wellness to kind of see that baseline. And then from there, you can expand on it, like with all sorts of cool classes and other things, but you want to make sure that that baseline is there.
I actually like what you started that off with. It's that, you need to want to like put that into place. And on a basics level, you have to care about the well-being of everyone around you. And otherwise, I guess it's just, I don't know, not genuine enough or authentic. It's like, yeah, there you go, do it. But you're not really invested. And I guess that comes across then as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that realizing it for yourself first is really important. So when talking about why it's really, really important for leaders, as soon as leaders start looking at their own well-being, they can start actually realizing the benefit of having enough sleep, of making sure that they're not burning the midnight oil overworking, making sure that they are taking breaks and leading by example. When they start seeing those benefits, it becomes easier for them to say, hey, are you doing these things to make sure that you're, happy, healthy, and feeling great at work?
Yeah. And create the space for it, right?
Yeah.
So how does that, and you probably answered that question already to some extent, but maybe there's something to fill in on how wellness fits in with the modern workplace.
I think that, I kind of think of it like going on a road trip. So you can have everything in place. You've got your snacks. You've got all these different things ready to go on this road trip. You've got, your playlist of great music. But if you haven't done an oil change, if you haven't done those basics, you still might break down. So in the modern workplace, we're doing all sorts of different programs. I see so many different programs coming in at workplaces. I get approached about them a lot of, you work with organizations. We would love to show you this new app that's going to work this. And some of those are amazing. But if we don't get that oil change done, we're still going to have a breakdown. In the modern workplace, we're seeing a lot more cases of burnout. People are, trying to navigate not only the changes in the workplace, which might mean smaller teams. There's been layoffs in different organizations, but it also means external stress. So not only are they experiencing stress at work, but they're experiencing stress in their personal life. And so it can just be like cyclical, that it's just like, I'm still driving on this oilless car and I'm just going to keep going. And then you hit burnout. So it's super important right now to give space and give, acceptance of, you might not always be at 100%, but let's figure out how you can be at a good place.
Yeah. Makes total sense. And especially now with what you mentioned, there's just stresses are everywhere. It's like everywhere you turn, and it's like, where is this nugget of calm or, well-being somewhere? Totally. So in your organizational role as a leadership and organizational coach, you obviously have to focus on the leadership team. And that's something or what you've touched on already. So why is it specifically important for leaders to practice self-care and wellness?
I think that as a leader within an organization, and this can be from all levels. I'm not only talking about the C-suite. I'm talking about, everybody from somebody who is taking charge in their personal role, which could be any level, all the way up to our CEOs and that sort of stuff. If you are influencing others, they're going to pick up on how your energy is, how your being is, and how you are showing up. And I think that something that's really changed, and I think that it's changed for the positive, is the workplace has actually changed from the early bird gets the worm. And, as a leader, I should be the first one in and the last one out. Burning that midnight oil, just keep on going, having pride in not taking any sick days. And for people who are being influenced by this, that can seem overwhelming. That can seem unrealistic. That can seem so many things that just aren't conducive with growth into a career. So as a leader, the best thing that you can do is actually lead by example and show it's okay to take a sick day, because you can't be on every week, every evening, working weekends all the time, because it will burn out. So as a leader, by taking care of yourself, sitting down, having a break and saying, no, having an actual lunch break is important, your team will then do so. So you're giving permission for people to take care of themselves. If people take care of themselves and you're taking care of yourself, you'll have better conversations. I mean, I've definitely been in the space where I haven't had lunch, I'm hungry, and it's overdue. And I go into that meeting and I might get a little snippy. I might, barrel over somebody, and that's my energy coming through, which is, definitely a strong energy sometimes. But if I haven't taken care of myself, it's definitely not going to go well. Yeah. So if you're taking care of yourself, your staff people are a little bit calmer. They're a little bit easier to, communicate within each other. And then you're going to be more productive. You're going to be able to navigate conflict. You're going to be able to work through change. All of those things are so much better when you've taken care of that foundation.
Yeah, I hear you. I had incidences as well where I had to eventually resort to putting lunch as an appointment with myself in a calendar. So to not be, burned out by early afternoon because I skipped the lunch break. And I was like, no, I have an appointment. I'm going for my lunch break because of exactly those reasons. And it was just it wasn't good for myself, and it wasn't good for everyone else around me as well. And that just came to mind when you said it. It was like, I'm not the only one who had to learn through that experience.
Well, and I've been coaching folks before, and we'll talk about, okay, so what's going on? I just feel like I can't get through to that person. That's often a big topic of coaching. How can I communicate to these different types of people to get through what I need to get through? And it sometimes takes people back, but it's like, so what does your day look like? Well, that doesn't really matter. I'm talking about this one person. It's their thing, not mine. Okay, well, let's look at you first and see how you show up. Are you taking breaks? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you making sure that you're not running from one meeting to the other and late to every single meeting? Because I know we all see that. We definitely all see that. So that's where it comes in when we're looking at bigger things. Did you have lunch? Because that might be why you can't get through. Did they have lunch? Yeah. Maybe
go to lunch together.
Exactly. Fill up that emotional bank account.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Emotional bank account. I love it. Great.
You got to deposit if you're going to withdraw.
Yeah, exactly. So if leaders don't pay attention to that, first of all, for themselves, but also for the people around them, it's like, you've already said some of the risks around it on, communication, productivity, being down, etc. What else comes to mind if that's not addressed?
I think the two biggest things about the risk are burnout. Burnout is a real thing. It's not just feeling, a little bit overwhelmed. It's a physical and mental, state of being that can be really scary. And I have a book recommendation later called Burnout, and it kind of goes through not only how it can affect you mentally and within your workplace, but also physically. And, especially for women right now, and I don't know what is, I don't know if it's because we're taking on too much. I'm not sure, but it is showing up in women more than ever. Is that sense of burnout and not having those strong boundaries and just getting to the point where you're physically sick. And then the other thing that I really see is disengagement. So if you have a team that is feeling overworked, not taking care of themselves, feeling sluggish because they haven't, done different things to kind of care for themselves, that engagement isn't going to be there. You're going to have meetings where it's like, so how's everybody doing? It's work. There's ways of loving what you can do. And a base of that is being engaged in your work. And so it is really a leader's responsibility to create that area or that environment of engagement. And a great way to do that is to start by making sure that your people are psychologically safe and physically safe.
Yeah. And it takes there's a bottom on a leadership or organizational part, there's a bottom line to that as well, which, has impacts if you need to replace people or go through,
Absolutely.
other things. So there's a real bottom line there as well. I guess that's how this is being impacted, but it all comes down to people and caring.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially from burnout, it takes a long time to come back from that because of the physical impact it has. So I guess there's also opportunities here. What would they be?
I think that some opportunities are for leaderships to invest in this. So like with any new focus within a workplace, there takes a level of personal investment and sometimes financial investment. Financial investment can be within time, taking the time to check in with people, taking the time to check in with yourself. And another great investment is actually talking to a coach. For a lot of people who are getting to that line where, if there's a leader sitting out there thinking, I recognize this. My team, I know they're burnt out. I know that I'm not taking care of myself. A great way to start is actually to go talk to a coach, talk to somebody who can help you break down the thoughts that are inside your head and also what's going on within your organization so that you can start looking at what do you do now? How can I invest in something? And that doesn't mean that it has to be a program. It doesn't mean it has to be any one thing in particular. It's going to be personal to you. And so figuring out how can you invest in what you need to make a difference for your wellness among your organization.
Okay. So I know you've prepared something. We're going to go into that in a moment of everyone can go. That we'll actually have a document in the show notes that people can download and then just read along or do the exercise together to figure out where they are at with their wellness in the workplace. Just a tiny step before that, who's essentially responsible for wellness? Is it always the leaders, or is it the personnel or HR department that we need to go to if we're an individual contributor at a company, or do we go to our leaders? Who should do something about this?
I think, everybody has a piece of it. So I think that everybody needs to take some responsibility for their own personal body that they live in and their mind that they work with. And I think that the leader's responsibility, and, whether that's coming from leadership within HR or if it's coming from leadership within other areas of the business, is to allow it to be there. So, giving people permission to take those breaks, to be able to take the time that it needs to do some self-care, and encouraging it is a leadership piece. But just like anything, we go to school to be able to come and get the credentials that we need for our job. Going back to my car metaphor, you could get all the driving lessons and how to drive your car, you have direction, where you need to get to. But if you're not taking care of the actual vehicle, you might not be able to actually use those skills and that knowledge that you've gained over the years to be able to get there. You'll break down just like your car would. So there's some responsibility on everybody to be able to do that. But it's especially important for leaders to allow that conversation to happen and encourage it to happen. Yeah.
And that also goes for leaders who don't have that in their title, I guess, because you referred to it earlier. Anyone who's I don't know, what you call it, influencer.
Yeah.
People who influence others.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. So Where do you start? Where do people start with wellness in the workplace? You've already mentioned a few things earlier of, what is possible, and but there's a lot of services available, including obviously coaching services, but there's lots of websites, opinions, apps. Fill us in. Where do we start?
So through my journey over the last couple of years on trying to figure that out, what's the answer?
Yes.
I mean, with many things, there is no one answer. There's so many different ways. I know. But starting simple has been the best approach to me. So what I found and what I've kind of adapted and what you can find on the show notes is actually a wellness needs assessment. It was adapted by a self-care assessment that I found through a therapist website that goes a lot deeper than what I've provided today. So I wanted to really look at what are some of the things that as individuals we can control, we can take action on, and then we can actually, make goals around that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, that doesn't necessarily take a ton of time. Because, as a coach with anything, we know that we have to make goals that are attainable, that we can work towards, that we can really kind of just start working on one piece at a time. Whenever I work with somebody who is talking about, just feeling like they just aren't, getting the traction that they want as a leader, or their team is just feeling a little disengaged, I recommend doing this as a homework piece. So this is a tool that I use with my clients that they can take away and then bring forward with some goals. So it goes into 4 different quadrants, super easy, and it is self-reflection, which will help you actually be able to set some goals around it with your coach or on your own. You don't have to do this with a coach, but if you are looking for, further in-depth growth, that's a great idea to do so.
Brilliant. Bring it on. Talk us through.
All right. So the needs assessment is broken down to 4 areas: physical self-care, psychological or emotional self-care, social self-care, and professional self-care. So the first one is physical self-care. So this actually has about 10 questions that you can go through. And it's just looking at, do I do this poorly? Do I do this okay? 50-50. Am I a rock star at doing this action? And being able to start and saying, this is actually something that I want to build a goal around. I always like to preface this, be honest. This is just for you. It's not a test to show, what percentage, what's your grade on self-care? How good are you at it? I mean, the first time I did this, I'm like, whew, I got a lot of goals to make,
Yeah.
But it's about taking small steps which are going to make a big impact.
So is it like scoring each question, or when you said you're a rock star at it, or yeah? Okay.
Yeah. So it's like 1, 2, 3, I'm not great, I'm okay, or I'm awesome at this. And then you can just write notes about it, but it's really to identify a couple of things that you want to start with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it goes through questions like, are you eating regularly? It's up to you how much you want to reflect on that. You could journal and you could do all sorts of things, but did I eat today? Am I eating on a regular basis? Did I put on some clothes that make you feel good about yourself? That's a big one, because especially in sweatpant nation, I kind of joke to my friends. I'm like, I haven't worn hard pants, aka jeans, in like 2 months. I better leave the house for a bit. So, do I feel good about myself when I'm showing up on a Zoom call, or showing up to other people, or just showing up for myself? Am I resting when I get sick? Am I seeing a doctor for preventative care? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I doing some exercise? So it just takes care of each of those little items that could affect your whole day. I know for myself, if I wake up in the morning, I have a great shower, I get up, I do my hair, I throw on a top that I actually like, I have a good breakfast, my day is going to start off totally different than if I roll out of bed, I rush around to take care of the dogs, and I sit behind my computer and feel like, a bag of garbage. Totally different effects on my day, and totally different effect on my work.
Yeah. Great. I just like, even when you just rattle through those questions, oh yeah, that's an action item for me. Yep. Need to get some more sleep. Yep. Exercise is a good one. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's not, I love that it's so easy and straightforward.
Yeah. And one thing that like really excited me, I heard it on a podcast and I can't remember which one now. And so that's my fail, but it was talking about just trying something for 2 minutes. So if you're reminded like, oh, I should do a little bit more exercise, could you go for a walk? Just only commit to 2 minutes. And it's based on a book called Atomic Habits. And if you just start with 2 minutes, you'll usually continue going. But it'll help you build that habit to break it into your, bring it into your schedule.
It's the getting up and start doing it.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. So that was the first part. Is there anything else around that area that you'd want to cover?
Nope. But if you just go through and like put your notes on, have it ready to go later, that's the first step.
Okay.
So the next step is the psychological and emotional check-in. So this might take a little bit more time to reflect on and kind of go through. It's going to be personal for whoever's looking at it, but you can look at it among your work life or your personal life. They both, they both intertwine, which is, part of life. But it goes through things like, are you taking some time off? Like, do you take your weekends? Are you taking some time in the evening? Are you always on and attached to your phone with your email on it and stuff? Or are you taking a break from work? Do you participate in hobbies? Do you have things outside of your work life that, are yours and aren't work related and are fun? Are you doing things that actually, fill up your emotional bank account for yourself? And are you actually, doing things that you love to do? Do something comforting. When's the last time you've rewatched your favorite movie? Or I'm a big bath person. So, I like to have a bath where I put up a couple candles on the counter, have a bath bomb, maybe have my favorite book in there and like sit. Nobody's allowed in the bathroom when I'm in there. So it's like me time completely. And am I talking to people about my problems? Am I working with a coach on some of the challenges, or am I seeing a therapist to work through some of my past stuff? Or am I talking to a friend on a regular basis? Is there people in my life that I'm being completely honest with? And these are things that don't go into like critical mental health care. And I do really want to encourage, if people are experiencing like, feelings of real sadness and depression, that's when you really need to then actually reach out to mental health professionals to be able to really navigate through that. But this is just the basic well-being piece of how am I feeling? How am I doing on a regular basis? I mean, am I laughing? That's one. Do you laugh? Do you find reasons to laugh? So if you're going through and you can't say yes to a lot of those things, then you really need to make some goals to make sure you have some of those in there.
Yeah.
Laughing is important.
Totally. Yeah. So also with this, you're scoring, say, from like 1 to 3, and you're tallying things up and we'll look at it later. So
absolutely.
You'd be looking at those, like where are the highest areas or the lowest?
Yeah, you're going to want to, once you go through all of them, you're going to want to pick out 1 or 2 that you want to take action on right away. So 1 or 2 that falls in that one area of, I'm not doing this. So when I look through my psychological and emotional check-in, I'm like, you know what? I don't have a hobby and I don't laugh enough. What are a couple things that I can do to find some reasons to bring that into my life? Is it, going on my YouTube and watching some comedians? Is it, picking up some knitting stuff or some bread making? Because both of those have gone wild over quarantine. Yeah, it's hard to find yarn anywhere. Yeah. And if anybody needs a reason to make bread, I'll take it because I love bread. So once you've kind of scored it all, that's when you can pick out one or two things that are going to really enhance your well-being.
Yeah. And I love that it doesn't have to be so, I know you said it earlier as well. It's like cost effective and easy, straightforward things like, watch some cat videos.
Yeah.
Crazy cats and dogs. Hey, so it can be as simple as that. So that's what I love that about it as well.
I think you'll also start to notice that things overlap. So for me, things that make me laugh, I guess it could be considered a hobby, and it's considered exercise, is hanging out with my dogs. So it's taking some pieces from both areas. And then when we go into social, which is the next one, social check-in, when I go to the dog park, I'm meeting people, other dog owners. So I'm having conversations. So we recently got a puppy. That dog is keeping me busy. So, there's different things that you can tackle with one action.
I love that. It's a multiplier effect.
Yeah,
take off a few in the same time. Okay, cool. So we've got, which ones do we have down? The physical?
Yep. So we did our physical check-in, our psychological check-in, and the next one is social check-in.
Okay.
So this is one that's affected a lot of people. And, with us in isolation, there's some places that are completely locked down again. We've had to go to places like Zoom, and different areas that we can talk on video and those types of things. And so try to think of some different things of how are you actually meeting some of these needs? So things in the social check-in, spend time with people I like. At work, could it be a quick coffee on video chat with one of your favorite coworkers that you might not work on direct projects together, but used to meet up with in the lunchroom? Hey, do you want to have coffee? Like we're in the lunchroom getting our morning coffees. Great way to actually connect. Another thing that's on the social check-in is having stimulating conversations. When we're all work, and then we might live alone, or we might live with a partner, or you might have a whole family at your house. But are you having stimulating conversations outside of the workplace and outside of task-orientated, pieces? And if not, are there groups that you can meet with? Are there ways that you can put aside time to actually dig a little deeper on what you're talking about with anybody? So it's hard right now, but there's ways that you can find ways to get that social aspect if you are lacking in that area.
What exactly how would you define stimulating?
I think that for me, and everybody will find it a little bit different. For me, stimulating conversations are like conversations that excite me.
Okay. Yeah.
That give you that bit of like, I feel like I just had a good chat. And for everybody, it'll be different.
That's probably true as well. Stimulating, but it has more of a positive, obviously, side to it. You can also be stimulating, kind of, work your way up over topics that might, I don't know.
Yeah.
You might have divided opinions over, or so it's not that. It's something that puts a smile on your face, and you feel just,
yeah, absolutely.
Good in yourself. It's like, oh yeah, that was good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last piece, and like I said, a lot of these weave in and out of each other. So within this, you're going to see some areas from each of those different places we just talked about. But the last piece that we have on there is a professional check-in. And this is where leadership and, your self at work really comes in. And so on here, we have different things like improve my professional skills. So with, us working sometimes isolated or separated, it can be hard to learn from the people around you on a regular basis. So looking for ways that you can actually improve your own skills is a great way to actually have some professional well-being in your life. So that could be through doing a course on LinkedIn. That could be working with a coach or a mentor on learning on how to like actually elevate your skills. There's all sorts of ways, but this is a great opportunity to, okay, so my work life has changed. How can I learn to actually figure out exactly what I want to do and do better?
Mm-hmm.
Another one is, around boundary setting. There's, do you say no to excessive new responsibilities? We've seen things change so much over the course of the last year. And I know from what I've experienced, there's been a lot of changing priorities. Mm-hmm. And it's been like, okay, we're going to work on this right now. Oh, that's not going to work. We're going to have to, do something completely different. And so I've seen different people go through adapting and evolving as COVID-19 has affected, the last year. And we need to, look at, is this too much? And do I feel safe at work to say, you know what, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now. Can we talk about a different way of getting what we need to get done?
Mm-hmm.
And as a leader, it's really important to allow those conversations and encourage them to be honest.
Yeah. Or bring them up yourselves, like role model,
Exactly. And then I think that, there's a couple other things like take breaks during your work, make time to talk. So having that coffee that I mentioned with
Mm-hmm.
social time, find time to talk and build relationships within your workplace. Mm-hmm. All those little things can actually help, nurture a really, healthy, well workplace. So all of these will be up there. I recommend, going through those 4 areas and saying, how am I doing? What do I want to work on? And then putting together some goals around them. And that's where you can reach out to, a coach. You can do some, looking online to see different tools that different people have, or it can just be putting something in your day, your day planner. However you find that intention, being aware that you need to do something will help you actually be more well at work.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then obviously with a coach, you get that accountability in, and more support if you need to along the way, finding your whys and get a bit more clarity as well around it. There can be a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you go.
When I saw a coach, you often think when I've experienced a coach or I've coached other people, like I remember the first time I went through like a full coaching relationship, I thought that I knew what I needed to do. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't get there. But through that digging deeper and really connecting with somebody and having them work, reflect back what you're saying and dig deeper, I ended up going a completely different way, changed some of my priorities, changed some of my goals, but overall helped everything
Mm-hmm.
else. So you might know what you think you need to do, but you might completely have a different epiphany by the end of it.
Yeah, and those goals should be helping you, not putting extra stressors. And, it's not supposed to be another to-do list.
Exactly.
Right. And you mentioned like all these like resources earlier, and you've just hinted at some as well. And there's so much information out there. How do we know, like, do you have a recommendation for like what has worked for you, or do you know like what to look for? How do we find something that's good and working?
I think, I think that there's a lot of different ways. I think a couple of things that kind of come to mind as I'm looking at that. Mm-hmm. The ICF, the International Coaching Federation, they do a lot of great work to work with different organizations through coach training and then maintain credentials for coaches who are on their way there. So mm-hmm. coaches, if you're looking for a coach, coaches who are either have experienced ICF level coaching training or are credentialed, that there's a level of professionalism that needs to be maintained. So that's a great way. You have to keep learning. Not all coaches have to be credentialed though. So there's lots of other great ideas. Looking for different psychologists, looking for folks who are active and really focused on learning and continually changing. And then I think that one thing as a person is try things out. If you're like, I don't know about this thing, try it. Does it feel good? Does it give you a better, lens on life and make you feel like you're being more productive or healthy?
Mm-hmm.
Try it out. And then word of mouth. I mean, the more that you start interacting with different folks who are in this area, you're gonna hear all sorts of things. And, I know you asked me to prepare a couple of suggestions on books. Follow them on Instagram. They'll give you all sorts of suggestions on different ways that you can, expand your resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Once you have a lens for this or a focus, you're just going to see if you want a pair of, red boots, all you're going to see is people with red boots all of a sudden. It's like
exactly.
your focus is just completely different, and
Absolutely.
it will open up a new world. So that's totally cool. Perfect.
And I think the last tip I will say, there is no magic cure. So if somebody is promising that if you drink this drink, everything will be fixed, there's no secret elixir. So it is looking for small ways to make improvements within your life.
You still have to do the work yourself. There's no one going to do that for you.
Yep, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah. So if, say I notice someone at, I'm coaching as well, so it's not necessarily me, but if someone notices that someone is in need of a bit more self-care, of wellness in their workplace, or just little things have come up where like, I wonder if everything is okay with this person. How can someone start approaching that other person and start a conversation around wellness? Say either if they are a leader or maybe not necessarily in a leadership position.
I think a great way to be able to approach anybody, if you're noticing that maybe they're, looking a little bit down or don't seem like they're, in a great place, is never walking up to them and saying, "You look tired. Everything okay?" Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that.
Yes.
But getting a little bit curious with compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a great way to start some of those conversations is, "Hey, so what did you do on the weekend? What do you love to do outside of work?" Having some of those curiosity and trying to dig a little bit, like, what do you do? And then sharing your personal experience. And, hopefully if you're having a conversation and you ask them about their weekend, they'll ask you about yours. And that's when you can say, "You know what? I got this great new checklist. And so I was really focusing on a little bit of my self-care. And so I, went through and I was trying to figure out what my day looks like. And I went for a walk, which actually helped me reflect on the day and this and that." So if you start talking about it, more times than none, people will say, "I need a little bit of that. Do you want to share that with me?"
Mm-hmm.
You can tell right away if you're just, showing up with kindness and just curiosity. Mm-hmm. People are going to just, be able to say, "Yeah, I haven't taken a walk in a month. I need to do that." Yeah. "Oh, well, do you want to go on a walk on our break? We can plug in our earphones and have a chat when we go on a 15-minute walk." So there's great ways to nudge people towards that.
Yeah. Not in a inspector kind of way. "Why did you do this? When did you do that?" But it's like those, like what questions, what's usually what you'd hear from coaches as well. And have a bit of kindness in there as well. Not peppering anyone else with questions. So those are examples. I've been on both ends. So it's like, there's just something about a why question. It's like, why? What happened? What did she do? And, whenever there's a why, it's like, I don't know. It just comes across a lot more harsh if you're being asked that. So open, curious questions, the way to go.
Nobody wants to hear, "You really don't feel like you're doing any self-care lately. What's going on?"
Oops. Yeah. Okay. And obviously you're there to help people as well if they want to, start the conversation around it as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we're nearly at the end of this
I know. And I do have to run off pretty soon. So yeah.
Yeah, let's get those last few questions. And you've hinted at them already. You have one book recommendation?
Okay. Well, I have a couple. So, okay. I find that you can get your knowledge through books and other areas. So I have a podcast, and that's the Dare to Lead podcast with Brene Brown. Mm-hmm. So she is doing some really great things on both leadership, but also the need to be open, vulnerable, and caring for yourself in that leadership role. So she embodies a lot of what I am really passionate about. For a book, I actually have two. So My Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin. When we talked before, you had mentioned that, and I had forgotten about that book, but it's such a great way of looking at one thing per month. So I definitely recommend that. And then Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. Excellent book. I would definitely recommend it. It helps you before you get to that burnout stage. And then I also wanted to just point out a great website to check out is MindWellU. And that is, they have a Take 5 challenge, which is just bringing a 5-second mindfulness exercise into your day. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you for those. There's two more questions I have that I ask everyone at the end of our podcast. The second, or the first of those two would be to get to know you a bit better, and if you let us in on something that's on your bucket list.
So one of my bucket list items has been kind of, thrown off by COVID-19, but it's something that I've been working on over a few years before that, and that's to travel to a different country every single year. So I love traveling. I love it when I don't know the food, sometimes the language. I like having moments by myself. It helps me kind of keep things in perspective. So as soon as we can travel again, I need to get out of here and go somewhere. Haven't picked exactly where yet, but we'll see.
Oh, that would have been my next question. What's your top 3 countries that you'd go to? Do you have something already?
I think that I have gone to, or that
you'd go to. Yes.
I want to go to Thailand. One of my dogs came from Thailand, and I just feel like I should go there, and it's beautiful, and I can hang out with the elephants. I really, really want to get over to Greece. I've been to Turkey along the Mediterranean and fell in love with everything about it. And then I think that the last one that I would choose is, I think that I would love to go somewhere in Asia. So I haven't been to Asia as a continent. So
yeah.
I don't know where to. Yeah.
Wonderful. And last question, what makes you dance?
So I think that I was thinking about this, and good tunes. I'm a huge music person. So I love putting on upbeat, more kind of indie kind of music. And soul from the, 60s is also a big hit. And I usually find myself dancing with my dogs. I have 3 dogs, and they love it when I sing and dance, and they'll chase me around the living room, and they love engaging in that way. So, yeah.
Oh my God, that visual that I have in my head is just amazing. And maybe everyone should do podcasts, because we have a social thing going on right now. We definitely both have smiles on our faces. So we're ticking a lot of those boxes that are on your checklist.
Yeah. I love all of these conversations. And, I think that it's a great way to check those boxes and just have a little fun.
Yeah. And, like meaningful conversations, and I don't know, it's like so many different things. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And talk to you soon. Bye, Kels.
Thanks.
That's it. What insights did you get about your wellness at work? And how will you commit to improving your situation? I'd love to invite you to a free chat with Kels to see how she might support you or your organization. Simply go to coachme.global/book. That's coachme.global/book. Thank you for tuning in. Stay healthy. Until next time, Nadine.